we going to talk about today? So we got a bunch of stuff on the table. So what do we got?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about lubrication, how to do it, when to do it, and why you want to do it.
Is this on the bolts itself, on the tools, on the steel? What are we talking about?
We're talking about bolts.
Okay.
We see this often with our customers, and it would be great to educate people on how to do this properly and when to do it. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, so let's debunk a lot of those.
Perfect. Yeah, I do see a lot of people who, number one, they apply it wrong. So it'd be good for them to understand actually how to do it. And then the difference between when you've got a hex bolt and a TC bolt, and when to lube and when not to lube in that case too. So perfect.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Awesome. Where do you want to start?
So let's start with TC bolts. So tell me a little bit about the lubrication and how that works with the TC bolt.
So the TC bolts come as an assembly, and we call these assemblies because they have the bolt, the washer, and the nut. But it also comes with a lubrication already on it from the manufacturer. And the RCSC states that you're not to add any more lubrication to your TC bolts.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I've seen or I've heard people asking, can I put lubrication on the bolts once they're installed and I'm starting to see rust, or if they're in the bucket and they're soaked in water, can I use those, just put a little lubrication on it? What is your take on that?
No, you leave them as is, just
Good.
as they come from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Nothing additional. Do not add
And
anymore.
if they are rusted and in the keg, I would say those are no good.
They're no good.
Yeah.
Get rid of them.
When you've got a rusty TC bolt, it's affected the lubrication and the value at which that tip is going to actually shear off. So if there's already a ton of torque in the tip when it's turning, when the tool is turning that tip to shear it off, it's going to shear off way before it actually needs to,
Makes sense.
or way after it's going to need to. So like the more lubrication, I think that's the thing I'm not sure about, is whether or not the more lubrication you put on it, that it's going to shear the tip off quicker or later. I don't remember.
So what happens in the field that I've seen, so when these TC bolts are sitting out in the sun, it gets really hot. And so what I've seen and heard is that these TC bolts will break. They will actually snap, not just at I'm not talking about
Not
just at
the tip?
the tip, it's the whole
Got it.
the whole bolt will snap. But I also have heard with this lubrication, when it's cold, I'm not sure at what temperature that is, but what will happen is that these tips will break off before it actually reaches tension when it's cold.
Tension.
The required tension.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the temperature does affect the way this lubrication works,
Got it.
which is why it's important for us to do PIV, or pre-installation verification testing, on site. Excuse me, not in a controlled environment.
Okay. Now this is a little off topic, especially with we're talking about lubrication here. But is it important to snug the TC bolt?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not off topic, really. I mean, you have to think about the whole process. Comes down to your steps, the lubrication. If you're reaching at tension, because the whole idea of doing this testing that we talk about, the PIV, pre-installation verification, it's all about finding what works in your method and what doesn't. So yeah, snug is important. It's not off topic. You definitely want to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that all about TC bolts?
That's all I can think of.
Huh.
Can you think of anything else that we see with our customers and what they experience in the field that we can cover with TC bolts?
I can't. As far as lubrication goes, I can't think of anything else that we can talk about on that side. But I guess we can move on to. Well, you got more.
Ken. Well, I was just thinking, if you take a look at what this bolt looks like, you can see that it looks a little more wet than if you were to look at a hex bolt, right? So you can tell that there's a little bit of there's like a coating on there.
Lubrication.
It's the lubrication. So just kind of something to just mention and to show the visual.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I guess we have a lot more to talk about on the hex side of things, because those are the bolts that we can lubricate.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
So All right. This
Yes.
looks pretty dry. You mentioned, did we mention any of the quenching oils and the tapping
No,
oils?
we have not. Because typically, when a customer will call in, we ask if there's, when we're trying to decide or help suggest what kind of tool would be beneficial for them for their project, we ask them if there is any lube. And they say, yes, there is. And typically, they're like, oh, it's whatever's in the keg. But it's really not a lube that's in the keg. It's a quenching or a tapping oil that comes from the manufacturer that is on the hex bolts
So
already.
that's not a lubrication.
It's not a lubrication.
Okay.
Yep. It's there to help keep them clean and ready.
So you mentioned the TC bolt as an assembly, but I can see the TC bolts are actually together, but these
Yes.
are all separate. Why?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They come separately. You can ask them to be put together, but typically they come separate.
Do they have the same quenching oils and tapping oils on the rest of these things, or
They would in the actual nuts and the
and the bolts?
bolts, but the washers, no.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
So, can we lubricate a hex head bolt?
That is a loaded question. Yes and no,
Oh.
depending on the installation method
Okay.
and which tool you're going to be using for the installation.
So the installation method and the tool that you're using, the model or the type of tool that you're going to be using.
No, I guess I said that wrong.
Okay.
What really matters is the installation method.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So we have 5 methods of installation. So we have TC, tension control, which we talked about here, which you would use a shear wrench for. We also have the combined method. We also have turn of nut method. We also have the direct tension indicator method, and we have a calibrated wrench method. Right? So those are the 5. Right now, as RCSE states, you can't, which we just covered, can't lubricate with TC bolts.
Yep.
The combined method is also one that you can't.
Yeah.
Right. And in certain instances, you can with the calibration,
Okay.
calibrated wrench.
And then we can
You can with turn
lube
of
the
nut.
heck out of the turning it up. bolts.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Exactly. And typically what we're seeing, we as in here at GWY, anything an inch in bolt diameter or over, it's very beneficial for turn of nut to go ahead and lube them.
Okay.
We like to recommend that, and only because it also helps the tool do the installation better. There's not as much friction.
So
we call that coefficient friction.
the strain on the motor
Yeah.
is because each motor, even though when we're doing turn up method, we have the tools that are a rotation based tool.
Mm-hmm.
The motors still have a max torque on them to kind of be careful of. So
Yes.
lubrication on the larger bolts is definitely something you recommend. Perfect.
Yeah. So when we're recommending a tool, we think about the bolt diameter. We think about how much effort it's going to take to do that method that they're looking at, let's say turn of nut. So that coefficient factor plays a big deal in the tools that we recommend. So lubrication will definitely help reduce that friction on the tool to help with the motor, as you were saying.
And we do ask a lot of questions.
We do.
So, and one of the questions, I mean, we've learned over the years to ask the right questions. But even recently, we've learned to ask a few extra questions.
Yes.
So there's one of the big ones. I know when I was out in the field and Keith and I were out one time on a job, that the tightening of the head side was a lot different than tightening from the nut side.
Absolutely.
So, did that have anything to do with the lubrication, or what exactly was affecting that? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, and so this is where you explain this one much better than I do. But if you take a look at the way that the bolt is installed in the steel, so the nut is you're gonna have
to do this.
I want you to do this one.
And that's totally. So from when you look at how that bolt is installed in the steel, and you've got the hole that it goes through, right?
Yes.
when that is rotating, and and from the head side, what you've got is the entire bolt that's rotating. There is going to be some movement in that hole, and the two plies that are together are creating a much thicker surface on the inside of that hole,
which increases the friction
for that bolt to be able to kind of like move and touch. And then as it's rotating, there's a lot more surface area for that to cause friction and then it causes a lot more torque on that bolt.
Right.
So we did see on even a 7/8 galvanized A325 bolt, that tightening from the head side of that bolt, it created so you're typically, I think it's around 500, 400, 500 typically on the torque, I think, for a 7/8. Just from what we've seen in these, that's not like what your value is supposed to be. That's just kind of what we saw. But we saw that increased up to like 1,100 foot-pounds by rotating it from the head side. So it was almost double, or more than double in some cases.
But there was also an issue in getting that reading too, because they were reading from the wrong spot, correct? When they were reading the torque first off, they were burning up tools. And they couldn't figure out why.
Right.
So when we figured out that they were doing it from the head side, we kind of understood why. But when they were looking at the torque readouts, when they were tightening from the head side, were they reading it from the wrong spot?
Actually, they didn't even have the right tools until we went there.
Okay.
To be able to read that torque. And then when we were reading that torque, or we talked about when we were going to do the installation to help them figure that out, and we attached the tool to read the torque value, which was DTM, we discovered then that they were tightening from the head side. So then when we actually tightened the bolt from the head side and looked at the value, we were like, holy cow, this is where the problem is. And this is what we discovered when we were there and figured it out. So it was definitely an eye-opener to make sure that we ask that question right at the beginning of when trying to sell somebody the right tool. So, and on the turn it up.
I was going to say on the turn up, Kate. And it's interesting because I think I'm more of a visual person. And when you explained it to me about turning the head side, just even holding the bolt and turning it this way has a whole different feeling versus if you put a washer and a nut on there and hold it and spin that way. So
you're only turning this.
Yeah, exactly.
As the turning element.
Exactly.
So
there was a lot more friction doing it this way versus when you have a washer and a nut and you're holding the nut and turning it. Right. There's less friction doing it that way. Yeah. So for me, I'm more of a visual person, but when you explain it that way, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And another thing, just one more point that we were, speaking, because we're on the conversation of lubrication. Yeah. That when they were galvanized, that we found out they were galvanized, we were thinking that the tool that we provided was great, and they didn't give us the information about the head side versus the nut side and what they're turning. So we thought that because a galvanized bolt is a coated bolt and it's provides some form of lubrication in a way to reduce the amount of torque when turning the turning element of whatever piece of the head side or nut side of the bolt that you're turning. We thought it would be fine. Yes. But apparently it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, but that's another thing that, in this whole lubrication conversation is like what's out there for lubrication, like what are considered lubrication options.
So the ones that we have and the ones that we recommend are your typical, like your stick wax that we have here. But we find that the Permasilk, is the best. Slick. Excuse me. I still said it backwards, didn't I?
Yep.
A little dyslexic reading it upside down. I don't have my glasses on.
Well, it is upside down. You're trying to read it upside down.
So this Permaslick is one of the best ones that we found out there. And we do recommend it, especially if you're doing it on the head side. And I know before I came on board, you guys did some testing with it as far as how much reduction in friction that it does versus the wax, right?
Well, and we may have, but it was so long ago, I don't remember the exact numbers and the differences between the two, but I can tell you that with the Permaslick, that one, when we were working with a customer that had 1.5 A490s hex head bolts, and they were using one of the largest TN tools at the time that we had, they were burning out motors and breaking sockets. They didn't have the lubrication yet. when we gave them this, it reduced the foot-pounds or the torque by almost 1,000 foot-pounds.
That's
It was a
crazy.
huge difference.
Huge.
Then making it a lot smoother of a process to be able to tighten those large 1.5-inch diameter A490 bolts.
Yeah.
So
Especially an
made a big-
A490, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. Recommend this on A490s of a lot of bolts.
Yes.
That's above the 1 inch. So you can keep, a smaller tool that might be faster. And if it's like at that max level of what the tool is capable of, definitely recommend using this. But absolutely for most of your 1.5-inch A490s, we definitely recommend having that.
So why don't we talk a little bit more about what else we would recommend? Because we do have, like I said, the DTIs. We have DTIs out there.
Mm-hmm.
So when that's just one more element that we're putting into the bolting system that we have and the assembly. So typically we have the bolt, we'll have a DTI, we'll have the washer, and then a nut. So we know that takes a little bit more force to turn as well, a little bit more torque, I guess we can say. Would you recommend that they lube them up for that?
Depends on the size of the diameter of the bolt, really, and the coatings, and a lot of the rotation is taken up with squishing those bumps on the bolts too. So, or on the DTI.
So we have a little DTI here just to show. This is one of the squirter ones that has the silicone filling on the inside, but this is typically what one will look like if they don't have filler in it. But these are the bumps that we're talking about, squishing. Yeah.
So that's another one of those many questions that we have to ask at the beginning of these conversations when trying to select the right tool. So yeah, absolutely.
Because it does create a little bit more friction. You got to have a little bit more torque to be able to squash those bumps. So yeah, I think, what are the other applications that you would think of to apply lube for?
Well, sometimes if it's actually written into some of the bolt specs, the calibrated wrench method can sometimes, in circumstances are necessary to lube your bolts, but it has to be something that is written in, because when you're doing a calibrated wrench method of installation, you definitely have to make sure that, that it specifies what torques you're supposed to be hitting. Mm-hmm. So when you're adding a lubrication, you're reducing some of those torques. So you're affecting what that end result is that's going to be on what somebody would have thought would be the right torque.
Right.
Now you're reducing it. So you got to make sure that it's written in or it's approved by the engineer records.
Yeah. And if you treat it in the field, you have to make sure that you're doing it across the board, but you also have to do a pre-installation verification with it to prove.
Now you said treating. I'm assuming you mean applying the lubrication.
Excuse me. Yes.
Well, I was just wondering.
Yeah. No, that's great.
You were fine saying that. I was going to ask, so how do you lubricate one of these things?
Yeah. So you want to demonstrate?
Well,
we can demonstrate.
We can try, or we can attempt, or we can just say, hey, you do this.
Oh yeah, all right. Go right ahead. Let's do it that way.
Okay.
So typically, I've seen people overdo it. You don't have to. There's really no overdoing, but there's a simplified way of doing it. Mm-hmm. So that way they don't have to because a lot of the times what the customers will say is, wow, that's just really time consuming. They want it fast. They want it quick, right? So typically, if you have them all lined up like this before they go into the designated holes that they need to go into, just kind of spray one side, just making sure that you're getting the threads. Just spray quickly across that. I like to have them because you never know what side you're putting your washer in, even though it's supposed to be riding side up. Sometimes you can't see that. Sometimes it's not apparent where that is. So I always tell them to do both sides of the washer and then just spray the inside of the nut.
So and what I also say is it's kind of in the same fashion that you had just said. You never know what side you're going to pick up and actually do, because you want to make sure that you're lubricating the side that is the turning element is going to be against the turning. So with with the nut and the washer, you can do the insides of the nut, but you want to make sure that, because you never know what side somebody's going to not pay attention to or pick up and do. Typically just do the outside of it. So, because you know that when that's turning, it's going to be turning, and that's where the friction is happening is on the surface between the nut and the washer. So you want to make sure that you have lubrication there to reduce the friction and reduce the lubricated, or reduce the amount of torque that's being applied. So
yes, typically, I find that this is an 1.125" bolt. I grabbed these because they're bigger and you can actually see, but usually it's the writing on the outside, right? So the nuts are easier to see where the writing is. So yeah, on the back side of it, because that's the part that's going to be on the turning, the side that's up against the washer. But yeah, that's kind of how we recommend to do it.
How about the wax?
So the wax is pretty simple, it's kind of the same thing. You do the same thing, but a lot of people how I've seen them do it in the field is they'll kind of touch the end of it to the threads, and they'll kind of take a little bit and do both sides of the washer, and then same thing with the nut. So I recommend doing it the same way. I've seen some people, it's funny, because we do a lot of education and training, and I saw someone that we collaborate with use chapstick, and it worked well.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it worked well.
Yeah.
Kind of it's kind of the the stick wax theory, right? So they went ahead and used chapstick, did the same exact thing, and it worked.
That's a very small tube, though.
Yeah, that is very small.
That's not going to last very long. So.
That's not going to do too many bolts for you. But that's a cool thing about the spray too, because you can just do it really quick. You can just pass it through, and it dries quickly. Yeah.
So let me spray one. Let me show, because what I want to show is like the difference, how it looks right when you spray it versus after.
Okay, that's cool.
So then you can see, because there is a bit of a color difference.
Yeah, there is.
Let's do a bolt.
Spray to the ground, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Dan's gonna paint this later, so we'll just make a mess of it. So we've got how it looks wet.
Yeah.
And then in a minute, it'll start to turn a light gray. And if you can't see it on that, I'll do a washer as well.
And that spray that you did for both of those is a lot. You don't really need that much. A little bit goes a long way with this spray. Oh yeah, you can start to see the difference.
So this is one that's not sprayed, right?
Correct.
It's taken a while.
And I know there was always some questions too about what the can says. Like they say to wait a while. You don't have to wait till it's fully dry. I think it asks you to, I don't have my glasses on, but I think it tells you to wait for about an hour. You don't need to. You spray it, and by the time you're going to install it, it's fine. It's good to go. There we go. I can see a difference in the colors now. But yeah, I'm going to lay this one down just because you can see that's the difference.
You can see a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah. So as it's drying, it has like a light, almost like a matte gray color. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a primer gray paint or something.
Yes.
Like that.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
what else is there about the lubrication?
I feel like we've covered most of it.
Okay. And if there are any questions, who do they reach out to?
You can reach out to our sales department or us. The best way so that everyone sees it is sales@gwinc.com.
gwinc.com.
Correct.
sales@gwinc.com. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Great. All right. Nice job.
Good job. Oh, we're going to talk about lubrication, how to do it, when to do it, and why you want to do it.
Do you have to say it like that? When
I'm
to do
trying.
it? When do you